The Galactic Empire, under Emperor Palpatine's reign, operated with a doctrine of fear, heavily reliant on overwhelming firepower and massive superweapons like the Death Star to maintain control over the galaxy. This strategy, while initially effective in cowing rebellious systems, was fundamentally flawed. It ignored the nuanced realities of galactic warfare, where adaptability and precision could often outperform brute force. A pivotal alternative lies in the strategic brilliance of Grand Admiral Thrawn, whose emphasis on understanding the enemy and leveraging superior tactics could have revolutionized the Imperial approach. If the Empire had embraced Thrawn's doctrines, prioritized the development of advanced starfighters, and shifted away from costly and cumbersome projects like the Death Star, it could have vastly improved its ability to maintain long-term dominance. Thrawn's military philosophy revolved around understanding his adversaries, not just their military tactics but also their culture, psychology, and art. He believed that true victory came not from sheer might but from outmaneuvering the enemy at every turn. This approach stood in stark contrast to the Empire's standard operating procedures, which often relied on overwhelming numbers and firepower without much regard for subtlety. Thrawn's methods would involve flexible, adaptive tactics designed to exploit the weaknesses of specific opponents, thereby achieving strategic victories with minimal losses. By studying the Rebel Alliance's decentralized command structure, Thrawn could have implemented strategies to isolate and dismantle key rebel cells systematically. The reliance on massive superweapons like the Death Star was not only financially burdensome but strategically short-sighted. These colossal projects required enormous resources and time, all while painting a massive target on the Empire. The destruction of the first Death Star at Yavin demonstrated the vulnerability of such investments. Billions of credits and years of construction were undone in a single rebel strike. A Thrawn-led empire would recognize the folly of such projects and redirect those resources toward more versatile and sustainable military solutions. One such solution would be the development and deployment of high-quality starfighters. The Empire's standard TIE fighters were notorious for their lack of shields, heavy armor, and hyperdrive capabilities. While this allowed for mass production, it also meant that individual pilots were seen as expendable, and the ships themselves were no match for the more robust X-Wings and A-Wings of the Rebel Alliance. Thrawn, valuing efficiency and effectiveness, would likely advocate for the production of advanced starfighters such as the TIE Defender, which combined speed, firepower, and durability. These ships could operate independently thanks to their hyperdrives, making them far more versatile in skirmishes and capable of rapid deployment across the galaxy. By investing in such technology, the Empire could enhance its ability to project power without relying on massive fleets or stationary superweapons. Quality over quantity would allow smaller, more elite squadrons to engage and defeat larger rebel forces. Furthermore, the psychological impact of a highly effective starfighter force would erode rebel morale, as they would find their once reliable hit and run tactics increasingly futile. Thrawn's focus on pilot training and ship performance would ensure that each engagement maximized Imperial efficiency, reducing casualties and resource expenditure. Beyond technology, Thrawn's strategic use of information and deception would play a critical role in this alternative approach. The Empire, under Thrawn's guidance, would prioritize intelligence gathering and psychological warfare. Rather than indiscriminate displays of power, Thrawn would aim to strike fear into the rebellion through precision strikes that targeted their leadership and infrastructure. The Empire would exploit internal divisions within the Rebel Alliance, sowing mistrust and disorganization among its various factions. Key figures like Mon Mothma and Leia Organa could become targets of elaborate campaigns aimed at undermining their authority and cohesion. Such an approach would also extend to planetary governance. Instead of relying solely on fear, Thrawn might implement more nuanced methods of control, integrating local customs and leaders into the Imperial structure. This would reduce the likelihood of widespread rebellions, as local populations would feel less alienated and more involved in the governance of their worlds. By adopting a more pragmatic approach to planetary rule, the Empire could maintain order without the need for constant military intervention, freeing up resources for other critical operations. Another critical shift under Thrawn's strategy would involve rethinking the Empire's naval doctrine. The traditional Imperial Navy emphasized large capital ships like the Imperial-class Star Destroyer as symbols of dominance. While impressive, these ships were slow, resource-intensive, and often vulnerable to smaller, more agile enemy forces. Thrawn would likely advocate for a more balanced fleet composition, incorporating smaller, faster vessels capable of rapid response and reconnaissance. Frigates and corvettes could be used to patrol key trade routes, escort convoys, and provide support in larger battles, creating a more versatile and responsive navy. This reimagined Imperial Navy would focus on maintaining superiority in every theater of war. Fleets would operate with a higher degree of autonomy, using detailed intelligence to anticipate and counter rebel movements. Thrawn's emphasis on adaptability would ensure that Imperial forces could pivot strategies quickly in response to changing battlefield conditions. This would stand in stark contrast to the rigid command structure that often hampered Imperial operations, leading to costly defeats. The abandonment of superweapons would also shift the Empire's focus towards sustainable long-term strategies. Massive undertakings like the Death Star were not only resource drains but also emblematic of the Empire's over-reliance on fear. Once the Death Star was destroyed, the rebellion gained a powerful symbol of hope, galvanizing support across the galaxy. Thrawn's approach would avoid such pitfalls by denying the rebellion these propaganda victories. Instead of fear, the Empire would instill a sense of inevitability in its subjects, the idea that resistance was futile not because of overwhelming might, but because of the Empire's superior strategy and adaptability. In this scenario, the Rebel Alliance would find itself perpetually on the defensive, unable to gain the upper hand or rally widespread support. With each failed offensive, Rebel resources would dwindle, and their leadership would face growing discontent within their ranks. The Empire's relentless, calculated pursuit of victory would wear down its opponents over time, reducing the need for grandiose displays of power and consolidating its control through efficiency and precision. This shift in doctrine would not only benefit the Empire militarily, but also politically. The galaxy's neutral systems, many of which were wary of openly opposing the Empire, would see the value in aligning with a more pragmatic and less destructive regime. Thrawn's tactics would allow the Empire to present itself as a stabilizing force rather than an oppressive juggernaut, potentially winning over systems that might otherwise lean toward the rebellion. This diplomatic aspect would further isolate the rebels, cutting off their sources of support and rendering their efforts increasingly futile. By embracing Thrawn's strategies, the Empire would position itself as a more dynamic and resilient force, capable of maintaining control without resorting to the catastrophic expenditures and risks associated with projects like the Death Star. Quality over quantity, adaptability over rigidity, and precision over brute force would define this new era of Imperial dominance, ensuring its grip on the galaxy for generations. With Thrawn's approach, the Empire's military and political apparatus would undergo a fundamental transformation. At its core, Thrawn's philosophy valued knowledge and preparation as the ultimate tools of war. This ideology would permeate every level of the Imperial hierarchy, fostering a culture where officers and soldiers alike were trained to think critically and adapt to rapidly changing scenarios. The rigid chain of command that often stifled innovation within the Empire would be restructured, granting more autonomy